Well, everyone, we're going to get started with our next presentation. Thank you so much. Packed house, bring your own chair is our new theme for the conference. So I want to introduce Bonnie Martin. So Bonnie's got a ton in her presentation that's going to give some background, so I won't really go in depth here. But as a former SecureWorks employee, she has a ton of information, is going to share today a little bit about how AI can make learning cybersecurity a little bit easier. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Bonnie. Big round of applause for her.
Thank you for coming. I'm Bonnie Martin, and I will endeavor to take Rowan's advice of not speaking too fast to heart, because I do that. So, but lunch is next, so if I end early, it's all good. Okay, so welcome. A little bit about me. I have worked in cybersecurity for 14 years, but my path to get there was a little bit windy. I have an undergrad and a graduate degree in liberal arts, actually. I was an archaeologist. That was me and the Grace Butcher at one of the digs I was at for a long time. I did that for many years. And my master's degree is actually in something called public history, which is like a fancy word for museum studies. So I worked in museums as a curator, educator, all the things. And I also own a digital marketing company and design company. So I help small businesses do websites and digital marketing and all of that. That's kind of a passion I have of mine. So how did I get here? As I mentioned, I was an archaeologist, museum studies, and then 2008 recession hit and my museum job disappeared. A lot of museum jobs disappeared. A lot of jobs disappeared. If you're older, I'm sure you remember that time. And so I kind of bounced around looking for what to do. Museum job, this job, that job, executive assistant. I struggled as many people did during that time. And so my path it isn't a straight line at all. It kind of winds around. But in 2011, 12, something like that, my husband, who also works in cybersecurity, he's talked in a couple of the quick Q&As earlier, I met his boss at a company dinner. And it turns out he was looking for a technical writer. And that is something that I have a ton of experience writing and researching. That's something I really love to do. So I decided to apply. And the only reason I decided to do this, because cybersecurity was totally new for me, is I had a little bit of knowledge. We always joke that I learned it over the dinner table. Because as many people know, the best way to solidify your own knowledge is to teach it to someone else. So Ed would talk to me over dinner. He'd even get out our little whiteboard, and as he was kind of learning things, and you can't help but absorb some of that. But once I decided to apply, I did a ton of self-study. I had to. Like, what is an OSI model? I don't know. What is PCAP? I don't know. So it became a lot of self-study. But eventually I did get that position. I did a lot of tech writing in an operations center. I discovered that I really loved this industry. It was super interesting. It really dug into my research, puzzle solving kind of passion, and so I became a SOC security analyst. I moved into vulnerability analysis, and then I most recently was a detection researcher doing web app detections and at SecureWorks in their CTU, their counter threat unit research. So that's kind of where I ended up. But why am I giving this talk today? Bodhi touched on it a little bit. AI is it's changing the face of how we work. It's changing entry-level jobs. They're still there, but they look so different than the entry-level job that Bonnie of 14 years ago had. So how can we break into this? A lot of new college grads here, people looking to switch. How can you bridge the gap of those true, really entry-level jobs of just that can be automated today? And so that is, of course, leveraging AI, the exact thing that is kind of automating entry-level jobs. You can use that to your benefit as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the fears I had coming into this industry and kind of how I overcame them, because while we now have AI, a lot of these techniques are still super important and still relevant. And then how AI could have helped me a little bit. So some of the fears I had were they were internal fears. I had terrible imposter syndrome. People were going to figure out that I don't belong here. I'm just here to write documentation, but I want to do more. And I also dreaded not knowing the answer to things. What if someone asks me a question that I don't know? So we'll talk about a few of those as well. But some of them were very real. I didn't code. I didn't code at all, like nothing, except like if you count HTML like websites in the 90s for your favorite bands in high school, like I could do that. That is my extent of my experience there. But in this industry, not being able to code or script something, it really feels like you're entering this like, NASCAR race or Formula One and you're on a bicycle. Like I felt so far behind immediately because the people out, my coworkers, they could just, script something super quickly to make it faster. And I was sitting there working through my pivot tables and trying to manually do things. So I felt at a real disadvantage. And I wanted to learn, but I was also afraid of breaking things, So, yeah. CTFs, they felt out of reach for me. They were super stressful, just the idea of them. And I will show you, I love them now, but we'll talk a little bit about that. The first time I ever heard about a CTF was some of my coworkers were going to participate in a red-blue like tabletop exercise at RIT, and they were talking about it, and I was just, this was over my head. It sounded terribly stressful. But as we will talk about, CTF, if you don't know, it's a capture the flag game, and they're really made to help you learn. They can be all different formats, Jeopardy style, kind of red-blue exercise, kind of hacker style, but they're made to help you learn. But at the time, it felt like a locked door, and I didn't really feel comfortable, taking that first step to try them out because imposter syndrome. This is something that many of us struggle from. I do, I still do, and when I didn't know things, like even when I did know things, I had this thought of maybe I don't, maybe I shouldn't know them. At one point I got asked to work with a more advanced research team. I was super excited about it. I was on one of their team's calls, and someone was talking about an automated pen testing tool they were doing or something like that. And they were walking through this attack. And it was a cross-site scripting attack. And at the end he was like, "Hey, does anybody know what attack that was?" And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I do web app vulnerability stuff. That's a cross-site scripting attack. Well, no one else on the call said anything. And I thought, well, I must be wrong. It must not be that, because if all these brilliant people that I'm working with aren't speaking up, then I must be wrong. And I wasn't wrong. I was right. But and I think about that often not because they didn't know, but because all these brilliant people, but they weren't web app researchers. They did other things. And the industry is so broad, and there's so many different niches you can have and be successful in. And it's a reminder that no one can know everything. So I try to keep that in mind as well. Perfection paralysis is also the thing that I really struggled with a lot. I had this fear that I shouldn't touch anything or do anything unless I understood it end to end. And in many cases, you just can't know that. You can't know everything end to end. So when I worked in the SOC, I'd be prepping for these client calls that I had to do to talk about their security posture and the alerts they had and all these different things. And I would over prep for them, because I thought, what if they ask me this? And what if they ask me this? And I wanted to make sure that I sounded like I knew what I was talking about when I was an expert. And most of the time they didn't ask any of those things, and it was just a vicious cycle, tied to this imposter syndrome. But I tried to keep up this disguise that I felt I needed to have a place here. And so in a way, like, I had a lot of missed opportunities. So if you take away one thing from this talk, and I'll probably say that multiple times, but if you take away one thing from this talk, you don't need to be an expert before you start something. And that's AI, no AI, like that's super important. And to take that first step, to publish that blog that you're worried about publishing because you don't want to say something wrong. Like Bodhi has said it, I think every talk has said it, you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay, and it's part of the learning process, and everyone makes mistakes. And so, like, as these entry-level positions are changing and feel like they're disappearing, it can put a lot of pressure on new college grads and people looking to get into the industry. So, but don't let that stop you. So the reality of how I overcame some of these, and I'm working towards overcoming them. It wasn't easy. It's not overnight. It's 14 years in, and I still have those days of like, oh, should I be giving this talk? Like, will people find this useful? Do I really know enough at this point to do that? And yes, you should. Give the talk, write the blog, do all the things. And the biggest thing is mentorship and community, which everyone has also talked about. But I think that just illustrates how important it is. And that was, I would say, the biggest game changer for me. I have been blessed over the years with some amazing mentors and coworkers. Even the roughest person I ever met in the SOC, who you just didn't want to talk to, they never said no if I asked them a question about how to do something or point me in the right direction. Like, never said no. So in a way, I kind of regret, well, I don't have regrets, but I wish I'd taken the steps sooner, because I did have help and encouragement. I'm also an introvert, as many of us are, and I was nervous to even ask someone to talk to me and to kind of get that relationship going. And so I had help, I had encouragement from other people who'd be like, hey, you should talk to this person, talk to Bonnie, and talk to Dan, and once I got that first relationship going, and they were working through me and working with me and helping me, do a hack the box challenge and challenging me to try something different or new, it got easier to talk to the next person and reach out to the next person. Notes are extremely important. That saved me. I had Notepad. I wish I had a screenshot of my notes from my SOC days. A Notepad ++, like a million tabs.
Oh, no.
It was a disaster. But I used them every day. I copy, commands that I needed, or topics I needed, or little blurbs about a virus or malware that I had to communicate easily and quickly. Like, it was bad. And then it moved to OneNote, and now it's in Obsidian. This is actually a map of one of my Obsidian vaults. I think it's my OSCP
That's real.
studying.
That's real.
It's real. That is the mind map of my OSCP studying. And I use it a lot. There's a million note-taking apps out there. You find the one that works for you and that you love. And it has saved me 4 times than I can count. And more Obsidian, repetition. Just doing it over and over again. Doing that difficult upgrade on a device that I was worried about, that it came back, it didn't die, I didn't have to call the guy at the data center to reboot it. And those are stressful, but you do them over and over again, and it becomes easier. And offering to take on those hard things that you don't know, like your manager says you have a project and it sounds cool, but you don't know anything about it, offer to work on it, offer to help on it, and it will only broaden your knowledge and your horizons. CTF myth busting. So as said, CTFs, there's one going on here, which I would love to work on maybe a little bit later. I felt like I was going to be thrust into this black hole with no help, and elite hacksaw guy is the myth. And AI decided that that's what the reality of me doing a CTF would look like. And it's not wrong, because I do have a golden retriever and he would sit with me on the couch. But I attribute this to one person specifically that I worked with at SecureWorks. Her name is Marcel Lee, actually. She's super awesome. She, I think, spoke at BSides Rochester last year, but she's a huge CTF enthusiast, and she's so open and encouraging. And during COVID, we did this like remote kind of culture thing where we did an all-company CTF. And she really encouraged all of us to take part in it. And I fell in love with them, and I love them, and they're for the curious. And if you have curiosity and and you just want to try, and every CTF person I've ever met has been super excited to help, and they're super fun. So, and you learn, that's what they're made for. So Marcella really credit with that. And then traditional learning paths. How did I overcome this? The big elephant in the room. I couldn't code. Well, there wasn't AI at the time. I didn't go to school. I didn't have a traditional degree for coding. I wasn't a programmer. And so I did learn Python the hard way, as someone pointed me to. And that was hard. But it really gave, I don't even know if I finished it, but it gave me the basics that I needed to kind of take the next step and learn and know and really understand what my coworkers were talking about. And then a lot of these other learning paths, SANS certificates, OffSec, the OSCP is probably my absolute favorite training that I've ever done. It's awesome if you like pen testing type of stuff. So if you can get your companies to pay for it, I'd highly recommend it. But some of these, they didn't even exist when I started. There was no Coursera, there was no TryHackMe, but so these traditional kind of platforms of gamified learning and even, certifications, they're still super valuable. And they helped me a lot during my self-learning. So I would say that structured learning still really matters. And so I wish I had a magic answer like all of those for how did I overcome my imposter syndrome and things like that. But you just build on small successes. And my mentors would encourage me, and my coworkers would. And it's an odd thing to say. One of my mentors, when I was first starting out, I asked him, I said, hey, what I'm going to do this hack the box. What's a good like beginner tool set for like hacker tools, because I didn't know where to start. And he said, Google. I went. And I initially was a little disappointed that that's what he said, because I had this idea, this expectation that he was going to say, oh, well, Metasploit and Nmap and TCP-dump and all these tools that I could just kind of put in this little bag and use to be successful. But he was totally right. Google is the most used tool that I know that anyone has used, up until maybe AI. But and Google also it's open. You're not stuck. You don't have to restrict yourself to this tools that you used, a couple years ago, because everyone's always putting out new tools and new ideas and new information. So Google is the most used pen tester tool, I think. So the antidote to my imposter syndrome wasn't becoming perfect, but it was realizing that I wasn't alone in my doubts, and that just trying things is important. So all those things that still matter, but AI can make it easier. It's not magic, and the other methods, of course, are still really important and work well, but AI can help smooth the path and make it a little easier for you to take those first steps. So I'm going to do a quick demo on just 3 ways that I use AI to learn faster, and they're pretty beginner friendly. If you are not in cybersecurity at all, we'll walk through them. But this is something you can iterate on and become more advanced with, and just really take it wherever you want to go. And of course, ChatGPT. I'm going to use ChatGPT for all of these. You don't have to. There's so many out there, of course, that are specific to coding and picture generation and all the things. You have Gemini and Llama and the ones other people have mentioned, but they all have different strengths. But there's probably someone is coming out with a new model today, so there's always going to be a new one to try, and it's important to understand in these that we don't want to have AI just blindly give us the answer to things. The real important thing about AI is kind of giving us that leg up and not letting them do just the work for us, but to really help it jumpstart our understanding and our deeper knowledge of different concepts or things that we need help with. And as a disclaimer, I want to put, just be careful what sensitive information you use. If you're at a company or a school, a lot of them have internal facing models to use for sensitive information. Don't put client information in ChatGPT. So while we're going to do some security kind of analysis with it, just be careful of where you are putting your information. Or you can also set up your own model locally, which is getting easier and easier and super fun learning experience. All right, so first one you're going to do is going to talk a little bit about the biggest gap I had. I couldn't code, I couldn't script. So hopefully this will work. All right, we're going to take a log file, and we're going to have ChatGPT write us a script to do some information pulling for it. So let's see, let me get this out here. Okay, so let's say here's our log file. And we have, it's 500 lines of just random logs, and in real life, this could be just, 1,000 lines, 2,000 lines, 10,000 lines. Who wants to read that? No one wants to read that. So what we want them to do is we want them to write a Python script that takes a text file of log entries, counts the number of error warnings and debug messages, and prints a summary, and also return the last 3 messages. So we'll see, hopefully. See what it comes up with. So we have, all right. See, I actually don't like this one. Oh, here it is. There we go. All right. So it meets the requirements. It makes a couple of assumptions. So that might be something if we have to go back. But it gives us, the summary of what it did. And then here's our script. And then it also gives it how to use it, which is interesting because I've been on many open source pages where they don't tell you how to use a script and you're just stuck trying to figure out how to use it. So let's see how this works. So we're just going to copy this up. And, all right. And we have to change our name of our log file. So it's tldr log text. We're going to see. I'm just going to run it here. Oh, it doesn't like where I am. See, this is why.
So TDLR.
Ha ha ha. Thank you. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, excellent. Thank you for saving me from looking at the wrong thing. So we have our log summary and print out every single type of error warning that we asked for, and it gives us the last 3 logs. And there's a critical failure in the snack dispenser module. So we can take that, and so I mean, we didn't do. It wrote us that code super fast, and we can also take that and kind of do other things with it. Let's see if it'll update it. So if we do that. So let's see if it'll update the script and pull out some logs for a certain time. And now I'm kind of just blindly pasting this in and running it, but if this was real life, I would do a couple things with it. I might ask it to review its own code. It's really good at reviewing its own code and finding errors and proper coding practices and things like that. So it will actually make updates to itself based on that. And I also will do, like, I'm a new coder, and you walk me through this code. And so it does a really good explanation if you're new to coding or scripting. It'll give you a line-by-line breakdown of exactly what it's doing and why.
Oh, wow.
And it is really, this is super helpful. I've done this with things I haven't written sometimes. If I find it on GitHub and I'm trying to figure out, like, why do I need this? What's missing? Why do I want this? So it'll walk through code for you line by line, which is super awesome. So let's see. All right. Let's go to our next thing here. What do we got? Let's turn my thing here. Okay. All right. So it did a bunch of things. Helped us extract a lot of data very quickly. Someone with a lot of Python experience could probably write that, maybe just as fast, maybe faster, shorter. But it can really give us a good start on completing our work faster, but also I think the most important thing is the summary of, explaining it to you, so you can kind of deepen your understanding of Python the easy way. So if you are working in an operations center or pen tester, you are going to run into a lot of PCAPs and network traffic, and it needs to be analyzed. And Wireshark is awesome. You should definitely learn how to use Wireshark. I've taken a whole class on Wireshark, but I still don't know all the things you can do with it. But sometimes you don't have time. Or what I have run into a lot as a detection researcher is you are reading a grainy screenshot that a researcher put up on their blog of network traffic that they did, or a screenshot of Wireshark, and you have to take that and kind of make it usable in your tool, or make it, and it's a big long PCAP, and no one has time to make that programmatically useful. But AI is really good at taking screenshots and interpreting them, and also converting, transforming them into text that you can type out, which is pretty cool. So next one we're gonna do, tab here. So we're gonna take this, find my screenshot here. There it is. So we just have a screenshot of, probably hard to see there, of just random web traffic, and it's a bunch of lines. I think it's 250 lines I made or something like that. And it's just, This is pretty simplistic. You don't have any like bodies or anything, not a lot of, it's not a huge amount, but it's still kind of annoying if you have a huge peak you have to look for. So we're gonna add just that, there it is. So we're just gonna attach the picture there and see what they find out. And these prompts also are very short, they're very straightforward, but you can make your prompt super specific. So I just said on this one, you're an experienced cybersecurity analyst, analyze the file, obtain network traffic, identify if there's any suspicious requests. That first sentence, you're kind of targeting where you want the model to go, and you can make them long and specific and really, really nail in on what you're looking for. But for these general demos, I think we're good with just this. But let's see what it comes up with. This is one that took the longest. Okay. Oh no. Okay, so, and you get this sometimes where they want to enhance their image, didn't like the image that I gave it, so it's going to pre-process it. Well, let's see. In my tests, I didn't guess this response, so we're going to see. So it wants me to do it manually, but it did notice that there's a suspicious command execution or command injection, which is exactly what I was looking for this. So it also, little Sherlock theme there.
Okay.
Talks you through why it's suspicious. And then, so this is interesting because even though it said it couldn't actually do a good job of analyzing it, it gave everything I was expecting it to give. So it gave us the command execution, it gave us the brute force kind of patterns of suspicious web activity, all different, so it gives us some possible suspicious information, gives us a nice summary, and then some of the ones I put in it would give me like recommendations. So this is a great example of, it gave us information, it gave us correct information, but is it complete? Sometimes asking it again or giving it a better quality image might improve our response. And just you'll love the disclaimer, they can make mistakes, which is true. But one thing I do love to do, which I do with coding, is I'll ask it to look for its own mistakes, and a lot of times it'll actually come up with stuff. And so we were able to find our command injection. And so we solved our case with a suspicious post request. And then it also did a few things that I didn't initially expect it to do. I really wanted it to find a command injection. But it also found those anomalies and gave us a summary of those and give us some additional paths to kind of track down stuff. So, which is pretty cool. This is kind of command you might see. It's a really long nmap command, and it might be something you see on Stack Overflow or in a Discord or something when you're working on a project. But it just kind of looks like a wall of flags. I use nmap a lot. I've used it a lot, and I still am like, what is that again? What are all those things? So we can have AI help us break down this command, and so let's see how it does. All right, let's see what it comes up with. So we're going to tell it it's an experienced cybersecurity analyst again and explain this nmap command, flag by flag. Aggressive, comprehensive scan, which yes it is. And so it gave us a scan, and it's giving us every single flag, what it is, and what the purpose of the flag is, which is very helpful if you, like me, don't like to sift through man pages all the time or Google things for forever. Because some flags, even when I read the man page, I'm like, can I see that in action? I don't really get it. So it's going to give us everything. It's going to give all the NSE scripts. It's going to give us the arguments. And the one thing I wanted to call out was this unsafe equals 1, So the first time I ran this command through ChatGPT, it didn't actually mention unsafe equals 1. It like skipped over it in the summary. And so if you're doing it, remember to go through and make sure it's actually telling you all the things you want to know, because that is super important on this nmap command, because it can start using kind of disruptive scans, which you do not want to use, and so without proper knowledge of your network and the environment you're running it in. So it saved us from some potential copy-paste disaster, because that would have been super bad. But now the next time you see an nmap command with that unsafe equals 1, you know immediately what that means. So I think it's a perfect example of why blindly copying and pasting is not the best choice. So writing, explaining scripts, and decoding packet captures, and so that really helps. That I had to do all that manually, or find things or Google things, and this would have made things a lot less frustrating, a lot faster for me as I was learning. And so, of course, knowing things is just half the battle. A lot of us are here because we want to get those new tech skills. There's a lot of really cool talks coming up about Mac OS and application security, and those are super great ways to learn get your tech skills. But as the earlier talks also talked about, the other half is communicating yourself clearly and confidently to interviewers and to companies and to clients and to everything like that. So I also use it for not just the tech stuff. So it's great on reviewing resumes, giving you study paths. You want to learn something about Mac OS, and you went to the next talk that's in this room, and it was really interesting. You want to know more, but you're not really sure where to start. It'll come up with a great study path for you and kind of direct you to resources, and kind of give you that syllabus in a way for what to learn next. And like many people, I have terrible interview anxiety. Like, you say the word interview and I'm like breaking out in a cold sweat. So I have most recently used it for interview prep. So I was applying to a program recently, and I had to do a little interview. It was casual, but to me, this interview was just no good. So what I used the voice feature on ChatGPT, and I described a little bit about what the program was I was applying to, what I thought they might talk about, some topics, and I had to do a mock interview with me. And I said, do a mock interview with me and rate my answers. And it wasn't perfect, but it gave me really helpful, actionable steps I could take and things I could include. And I did this in the car on the way to the interview. So working with another person, a colleague, a friend to help you do in-person mock interviews is awesome. But if you're by yourself in a car, you live alone, or people aren't available, it was really, really helpful to me. And so it was also. It was a no judgment zone. It was low stakes. It was very, it was the AI, but they did they came up with some great questions, and gave me some great feedback on the answers I gave. So that was super helpful. And so I think that's the main point I want to get across, is that AI doesn't replace the work that I did, and all those avenues are still super open and super available, but it would have made it more accessible, less stressful. You have this non-judgmental AI to talk to and talk through things, and to help you, teach those little nuances that you don't know. So it definitely can't replace real-world mentors or real-world practice, but it can get you there faster and more confidently, and hopefully with fewer late nights Googling things. And so, and I wanted to call on something Bodhi talked about in the first talk. He gave these great ideas for AI projects and hiring insights. He had a couple great slides there. You can use AI to help you get started. Hey, I want to set up a cloud environment in Azure to play around with some stuff. And Microsoft documentation, no offense to Microsoft, it is intense. It's a lot, and it's sometimes really hard to navigate. And AI can simplify that for you, and they can kind of give you, I want to set up this, show me how to start, and it can really kind of jumpstart you that way to get some of those projects up on GitHub or on your blog or YouTube or whatever. So it can really help with that. So you don't need a computer science degree, and even if you have one, AI obviously can be super helpful. You don't need to be a hacker prodigy to be here and to have a successful career. Everyone doubts themselves, but taking the first step is the most important thing. And so, like I said, I don't regret the path that I took. I love the work that I do. I love the work that I found that I enjoy. But I think I could have moved a little bit faster, and most importantly, I think I could have moved forward more confidently sooner, and to have the right mindset from the start of my career instead of kind of wondering if I really belonged. So, yeah, I would have embraced it, I think, a little bit. So, and human connections are so important. I can't stress that enough. That really, once you find those mentors, that I can visualize in my brain the trajectory that my career took. And when I really found some good mentors, I just felt like I skyrocketed into where I wanted to be a lot faster. So while I'm a huge advocate of AI, helping your learning and supporting you, I don't think it can really replace the value of people who believe in you. And so finding those people is really important. So if anything I said resonated with you, I'd encourage you to try one thing this week. If you haven't played around with a model, try it out. Try to use it for, try CTF. Just even if you do one challenge or you pop into the CTF room today and talk to some people to get started, that's awesome. Have ChatGPT walk you through a script that you don't understand, or have it, use the voice feature to talk out a concept you're trying to grasp. And to find a mentor, a buddy, or someone that you meet here today to kind of work with AI stuff. You can work on it together and kind of work through the best ways to use it for you. So, and I created a lot of images using AI for this talk, and I did use it actually to help me with timing and how to structure it. Maybe gave me some advice when I was struggling, but I also had my husband who had some ideas that were way better than ChatGPT. So sorry, ChatGPT. So those real people are still really important. So remember that it can definitely accelerate your learning, but it shouldn't replace your real understanding. And people have talked about this earlier as well. Ask why. Ask those 5 whys to get that deeper knowledge, so that when you're asked what the difference between UDP and TCP are in your interview, you can not only answer that, but you can go deeper and really explain it, communicate your expertise that you have.
Ask ChatGPT.
Ask ChatGPT how you should explain it, yeah, and then take that in and really internalize it. And I think only good things can happen for you. So thank you so much. And there's my email. I'm on LinkedIn. And I guess if you have any questions, yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
I'd like to say that you did a really effective job at crafting your prompting and your examples.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's anybody here that's new at using AI tools and doing those kinds of things, there's acronyms that you can learn to be better at your prompting.
Yes.
Like CARE or CoStar or ACEs or a bunch of others.
Yeah.
To focus your prompts and get the results in your
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can make, some of the prompts that I've done at work, full disclosure, I actually was laid off from my job at SecureWorks a couple months ago, and they were acquired by Sophos and things, kind of move around. But one of the last jobs I did at SecureWorks was creating AI agents and models to automate the job that I was doing. And I knew that was, I knew it was happening. I didn't necessarily want it to happen because I love doing my work. But I realized that if I take on that job of doing AI and automating this, it's only going to propel what I can do next because I have that experience with AI. And to pivot off what you said, some of the prompts we would write for what we were doing were long. They're long prompts, to do very specific data-driven kind of things. So the examples we had here were super simple, but you can really get into it a lot and get really specific answers to what you're looking for. Oh, yeah.
So I get that AI is a really good tool for learning, but something I believe most people have already faced as well is a lot of time AI hallucinates. So like, I even read an article about this. So like, like especially in the learning phase, you pretty much don't have any idea on what you're doing. So, is it not like easy to like do something wrong as well? Like sometimes, let's say we're studying code and we're working on something serious, but there is a potential that AI gives me some package that doesn't exist, or even worse, maybe a package that could give potential vulnerability
Yeah.
in the long term. So like, how do you like really pull that right in?
So when you're in the learning phase, I think that goes back to the people that you're working with too, to have the mentor, but also it's getting better. But asking it to review its code. If you're and when you're testing something, like don't do the testing in production. Set up a VM so that if you want to test out something, you're not, you kind of have this controlled environment to play with. And then if it doesn't work, or you can go back and be like, I've done this, I've written things, and it says it'll do something and it won't, and I go back and I say, hey, you were wrong. Like what's going on here? And it'll be like, oh yeah, let me review all this code over again. Here's something that will work. And so you're just kind of iterating on it. So I think being safe about where you're testing is important, but also knowing that, hey, do a code review, ChatGPT, on this. You can even do it right away. Like do a code review for best coding practices. Make sure, you can put that in your prompt, make sure you're not using any packages that don't exist, or only use packages that do exist in this library or whatever you want to. So that expanding your prompt to be more specific can help you avoid that for sure. Did you have a question?
Yeah. You showed a demonstration of like you were talking about Wireshark.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a package out there for sanitizing your Wireshark data before you do a presentation or dumping it into ChatGPT that strips out all of some of the problematical stuff that you would to do that. So you want to look at, if you're sharing stuff with AI, make sure that you're sanitizing what you're doing it with.
Yeah. That's good to know. I didn't know about the Wireshark.
Yeah.
All of these logs, I just had ChatGPT make for me, so
Yeah,
these
that
are
works
just
too.
totally big. But
Yeah.
for sure, definitely, that's excellent knowledge, because you do want to be careful about what you're putting in. For sure.
And you can set up LM Studio to run your own model and then set the configuration so that it doesn't have access out. And so it's self-contained. That helps as well, so that you're not putting yourself
Yeah.
in a bind.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Anyone else? I'll be here so the rest of the day. So I guess enjoy lunch. Right?
You guys are probably all wondering where lunch is. Well, first we'll give a round of applause.